The Renew podcast features inspiring conversations between host Lauren Martin and influential women shaping the real estate industry. Renew is a rent-free initiative to unite and cheer on women professionals from every corner of the real estate world, coast to coast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Renew podcast. Welcome to 2026. I cannot believe another year has gone by, but I think this is going to be the most exciting one yet for Renew. And we are so honored to have a very special guest with us today who is also a dear friend of mine. Hey, Kerry, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
Of course. Well, to get us started, we have your pop quiz question of the day. And this is just a fun question to get us warmed up. So your first pop quiz question it's very relevant for me right now, but what is your favorite snowy day activity?
Well, I no longer live where it snows. But my favorite snowy day activity, I actually like to walk when the first snow comes, like walk out in the snow when it's all fresh and the plows haven't dropped a bunch of sand and all of that, so that everything's white and glowing in the evening.
I love that. I love when it first snows and it's nice and quiet. It smells like snow. But now you don't have it anymore. You've moved right across country.
Right. And now I'm on an island that might get a few flakes a winter, but not real snow.
Yes, island living. Well, welcome everybody to the Renew podcast presented by Rent Spree. I'm your host, Lauren Martin, where we aim to elevate female voices, share insights on how to navigate industry challenges, and showcase the remarkable achievements of women in real estate. Today, like I said, we have a very special guest, a dear friend of mine, Kerry Rakuson, who is the industry engagement partner at Centris. Kerry, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to this.
Amazing. So to get us started and to kick off 2026 and the revamp of the Renew podcast, would you mind going through and just telling our listeners how you originally got started in the MLS real estate space and when this really felt like home to you?
Yeah, so super interesting question, right? And I think back, it was longer than I'd like to admit, for sure. I literally had bought one house before you did searching on the internet for houses prior to joining the MLS. And I really had I really didn't have a lens into this, but I happened to be sitting on a recreation commission board, a regional board with the CEO of the local association that ran the MLS services in our area. And a job came up and I said, hey, what's up with that job? And he said, hey, are you interested in this? And the rest of that became history. And I took the job as the operations side of things. So I was a second in command there. And we really, that was in a rural area of Canada. And when I really started to understand that this industry had this network effect that really becomes like home is once I started participating in national collaboration, things like the technical peer group and things like that, I started to realize, wow, I can have a big group that I can lean on and really create connections. So that was ultimately how I started to feel like it was family.
That is amazing. And what roles did you have leading up to this one?
Yeah, so I think, I look at the history of where I came from that journey. So I started sort of in operation management. I will note that I started in the middle of an MLS system conversion. So if you want to cut your teeth in this industry, show up about a month before you launch a new MLS system. So that's how that was my rapid lesson into the deep end. And I went from there to be a CEO of my own organization, so local association doing MLS services in that area. So I moved on to that, made a move all the way across the country from home, and transitioned from that. I went into that role to be a change manager, changed pretty much everything. We might touch on that a little later. And then from there, I decided I wanted to venture over to the vendor world. And I spent some time in sort of that innovation startup space, all the way from bootstrapped startups to startup systems that were with established companies, and learned a lot on that side, to circle around and end up at Centris, which is really exciting because we're a company that has some uniqueness. So we're the technology organizations that's providing MLS services to all the licensees in Quebec. So I get to apply really great things I know from that side of the industry to my role, as well as we also have proprietary software that we sell into the marketplaces and have customers in Western Canada. Stellar MLS is our first US customer, and we're also doing software in Europe and the Caribbean. So I get to sort of have the best of both of the worlds that I cut my teeth on.
That's amazing. Yeah, you're international, right?
Yes, we are. We actually have stuff up and running internationally, which is great.
That is so cool. I know I saw you at the International MLS Forum last year in Canada, and you guys spoke on stage about some of the exciting stuff. So tell us a little bit about what it's like working internationally, because I know a lot of us are just working in the States currently.
Yeah, so, our team, really, it's about the flexibility to understand that markets are different and the approach to the markets are different. But I think that brings a real unique overview for the team to come together and work together around that. So we're bringing different ideas and we're looking at software. Software serves everybody, right? But we get to look at that software from a broader picture and make sure that we're bringing deliverables that really count and can expand in all markets.
Yeah, it's crazy because even here in the States, every state is different, every city is different, every agent has different needs, whether you're in a beach town or a ski town or just suburbia. And it's crazy to think how different it is outside of the States, but also how similar it can be as well.
Absolutely, and being able to build upon addressing those differences in software makes things more flexible, which is really a nice place to be, is having a look at it from that larger view versus we know they do it like this and this is what we're going to do. And quite often in the US, as selling software there as well and participating in software services coming out of the US as well, having vendors from the US, a lot of times it's like, well, this is the box and this is how it's done. And I think Centris, one of the things I love most about the company, beyond the supportive team and the room to be trusted and innovate, is that Centris has always been a bit on the bleeding edge, and they've pushed vendors to do things differently. They've been early adopters of new technology, so they're not scared of that. And so that really fits well with my personality and my willingness to participate in things that are new and exciting.
Yeah, and you guys work pretty closely with RESO, right? Because I'm sure standardization is pretty important through all of this.
Yeah, so I can say our team has changed over the years, and we have a team that is super dedicated to supporting the RESO environment, and we help participate in that language side of things, the multilingual side of things, because it's not just doing things in English, and it goes well beyond just, well, we have to have a translation for that. It's things like, how is price presented? How is, measurements presented, like all of those types of things. So we have some pretty talented team members who are working in the transport group, and I support some different groups like Data Dictionary, and always talking about that internationalization. What's interesting is Centris actually had to build their own standard way back in the day. We brought 12 MLSs together to create Centris, and we had to create our own standard because none of the vendors had anything to work off of that could support the French language. So we have like a lot of history in, well, working with systems to be multilingual and be able to support that. So it's nice to bring that over to the industry as a whole with RESO.
Yeah, that's amazing. Shifting gears a little bit, you and I almost worked together way back when. I always forget that.
We came close.
So close. But it always reminds me that this industry is, so close knit, and it's a lot about, just changing the business on your business card. But you learn so much along the way. So, talk to us a little bit about the transition from the MLS side into PropTech. Are there things that you took with you that were helpful? Is there something that sticks out that you were like, oh gosh, I lived through this and I want to make sure on the vendor side we don't do X? But talk to us about kind of what that transition was like.
Well, I think that's a really interesting piece, right? And certainly one of the things that is so valuable about having that MLS experience is being able to talk the same language. But also the most important piece is asking the questions the right way. Like sometimes you can listen to a conversation and be like, wait, what's happening in their market? Like you can hear sort of like, well, a lot of information around this is done and that's done and we want this to do this. Well, wait, why are your brokers and agents needing this in the marketplace? And being able to take that and translate it to technology. And I will say, in some cases, in many cases, sometimes the technology side of things, especially in startup world, who thinks they're going to come light the real estate world on fire, because we've got the next best thing, and we're going to come in and we're going to light it on fire, and they haven't had experience in organized real estate or how the systems interconnect or don't interconnect, those types of things, and they'll be like, we're going to light it on fire. And their behavior is, well, this is the right way to do it, but they don't have knowledge of on the ground. So this has been something I've really been able to build on and bring to the table for both sides. So I'm bringing that now in Centris to our vendors. So part of the industry engagement isn't just about, this expanding our proprietary software in the market. It also includes that I'm working with the vendors that help us serve our market.
Right.
So, because we're an MLS and a technology company. So I'm able to then say to our team when we're trying to express a need in our marketplace, okay, from the software perspective side, they're looking at this from this angle. We're looking at this from this angle. How do we make that bridge so it's understood? Yeah. So I think on both sides of it, that has been really valuable to have the practical experience on both sides.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I love that you say just speaking their language, because a lot of the time, even on my side, I have many, many MLS partners that I love. And I think I know what they need, and I think I know what their agents are dealing with. And then we get on a call and it's something completely different that I didn't see coming. And unless you take the time to slow down and to listen and ask the right questions, you would completely miss it. And then that funnels back to, your product team and how you build and how you service. So I think just not even, with MLS, but with anything, I think you bring up a really valid point. It's about asking the right questions and listening, which I don't think is done enough.
And I think that's very, a lot of times a marketplace may be bringing something. I think compliance is a really good place where this gets lost. Because in technology, you look at things very rationally. Well, it should do A, B, C, D, and it gets us to E. Whereas in a marketplace where you're trying to manage compliance, sometimes it's complex because they might only do A, B, and need to get to E.
Right.
Or they're trying to block them from doing D because they've figured out a way to do that in the marketplace. Right. And I think a lot of times, the tech side will be saying, well, this doesn't make any sense that we're trying to do this. But the reality is in the marketplace, they are doing something to help them achieve compliance in a different way. And yes, technologically, you're right. From a technologically standpoint, it should be wide open. But in a marketplace standpoint where you have where your resources are responsible for compliance, you're looking to fit that in. I think that's a really good example of a place that sometimes it gets to be a bit of a disconnect in the workflows.
Yeah, just speaking from experience at Rent Spree, we have acceptance and denial letters that go out. And you would think that it's just really easy, right? You have tenants apply, one person, or if there's a roommate, two get the property, and then there's a handful that don't.
Yep.
And, on a software side, if you're not talking to your vendor or talking to your MLSs, you think, okay, you're denying somebody, shoot them a denial letter. Well, it's not that easy. There's FCRA compliance. You have to be specific why you're denying somebody. So Rent Spree went back in and created FCRA compliance around why you deny somebody. But I think that really speaks to your point, like, you're not going from A to C without stepping through complexities in the marketplace, and each marketplace is different. So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that kind of brings me to my next question. And I didn't prep you for this one, but I just am really curious and want to know. So I think that in our lives, we are built from experiences, right? Like, I worked in retail when I was younger. I worked the Black Fridays, and it gave me a new understanding of patience. So I'm curious, growing up, what were some of the jobs that you had before you got into the MLS space that taught you some tools that you use in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think so. My husband and I used to own an independent bookstore.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, in the world, pre-internet book, pre-Amazon, pre-Indigo,
Oh,
yes.
pre-Kindle.
And we had like this funky little local bookstore, and
What was the name of it?
it was called Oliver's Books, and
I
it was on the
love it.
main street in Nelson. We bought it from Mr. Oliver, or we were the second owner after Mr. Oliver, but kept his name. But what happened was, in that period of time, we started to see the big book mass distribution, online shopping for books start to come into the marketplace. So local bookstores operated in a different model. And the publishers actually treated local bookstores very different than the mass sellers, right? And at that time, we had to make an adjustment. Like we had to make an adjustment in our software. We had to make an adjustment in how we got books. We had to make an adjustment in all kinds of things. And it was my first foray into really implementing a new technology system. So we went from, like, we were there in 2000. I remember I was quite pregnant on December 31st. And at 10 to midnight, my husband and I left the party, because I could be the DD, and went down to our store to shut all of our computers off and wait until midnight came on January 1st, 2000, to turn them back on, right? And what we had to do is we had to do this whole update. And that was really my foray in, like, we're managing a technology project. I then took that for a number of years. I ran a veterinary practice. So I was the practice manager and implemented a whole new technology system there, a whole new appointment scheduling, a whole new management of patient file system. So those early days of, like, shifting the businesses really supported me in being able to come into this industry and embrace sort of technology and manage any of those changes and that type of thing that happens. So,
I didn't know that about you, but it makes a lot of sense. And I wish I could go back in time and go to your bookstore, because I bet it was very aesthetically cute and had great books in it.
it was a very down to earth bookstore, and our children to this day love books because we made them dust all the low shelves when they were short. So they each had a feather duster and could run around the bookstore and dust the low shelves.
That is so cool. Well, I think that makes a lot of sense given all that you've done in the real estate space. And it really leads great into my next question, which is, the MLS and real estate space is evolving very quickly. And there have been a lot of changes. So what is one meaningful lesson that you have learned about adapting to this change?
Yeah, I love to embrace new stuff pretty rapidly. Like nothing, change doesn't scare me. Anybody who knows me knows that. Like I'll go over there, I'll try this, I'll try that. That stuff doesn't scare me. And that was probably born out of being a young entrepreneur in a really evolving world quickly. But I think the thing that I've really learned about it is to be careful about the rush in to totally push that change out without actually understanding the larger picture and impact. So, I think we get buzzwords going in the industry. We talk about the same thing for every conference for, 2 conference cycles. We'll keep talking about it and people will bring little bits and pieces of new things they're doing with it. But I think we really need to ask ourselves, what is it we're trying to solve? And does this do this? And are we solving many of our problems we're solving for yesterday?
Yeah.
As opposed to are we solving forward? So let's really think about what we're trying to solve forward for. And is this going to be obsolete by the time we try to solve forward?
Yeah.
I think AI is a great example of we're talking about AI. Well, I've actually recoined it to say, what's the actual impact?
Yeah.
Let's start talking about actual impact. Our team says, what are we trying to solve with this?
Right.
And we're embracing it. We're using it in our development. We're using it in all kinds of things, but we're really asking, what's the actual impact? So that's when you say AI now, I think actual impact.
Yeah, I love that because, I was just thinking about this as I was planning out the Renew conference agenda. You and I talked, and for those listening, Kerry is going to be speaking at the Renew retreat, so make sure to be there. But one thing I really, it's very controversial, but I don't want to talk about AI at the conference.
Because I won't be speaking about that on stage.
Yes, Kerry will not be speaking about AI. But we do talk about it a lot at conferences, and I think that's great. I think AI has changed a lot, even in like the last 2 years. What we were talking about what AI could do 2 years ago is totally different than what it can do today. And I think this is a very controversial opinion, but I think sometimes we talk about it just to talk about it. And we're not answering that question of, well, why? What am I doing with it? What am I trying to solve for? And I think we're losing a little bit of heart too along the way, right? Like personalities are coming through less. This is a really silly small thing, but Bill Andrews and I were writing a review for somebody, and we both used ChatGPT. ChatGPT knew about the situation we were writing a review for. Given each of our 2 different voices, we asked 2 different things. We asked, hey, write this review for us. My phone, his phone, separate accounts. It looked almost identical.
Yeah.
And so while we both posted the review on Google without checking the other person's, and I went through and we read them and we were like, wait, did you just copy mine? And I was just like, no, I made my own. And so you and I had chatted about this a little bit, but I like that. What are you solving for? Because if you're just using it to use it, it takes the voice away. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
For sure. And it solved, like I use it for different reasons. But really bringing your authentic self, I will say in the industry, I think bringing your authentic self is very important because no matter what, those real estate relationships on the ground between agents and clients is more about relationship and trust. And I think that carries through upwards in the industry as well at what we're doing. At least it does today. Will AI change that in the future? Will innovation and technology change that in the future? I think that's a big question. Do we want it to change it in the future?
Well, I think we're going to see a shift back away, like especially maybe like I know we've talked about your daughter, but like kind of that generation we're gonna see, I mean, there's already a spike in people buying like film cameras
Yeah.
and mixed media and going and searching for hand painted things. I think I saw an article about like typewriter sales have gone up. I think there's going to be a shift back away to like originality because that is going to become more valuable
Yes.
as these AI generated things are coming into the picture, because there's certain things AI can't replace. And I think to your point is relationships. I mean,
Mhm.
those are built on a personal level, that I personally don't see that being replaced.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's because I made my kids dust shelves in the bookstore when they were little, but their generation is very interesting. So my daughter is building things in her job with AI that's helping her, but she's understanding there's a place where she injects
Right.
herself in the relationship. She uses it to be more efficient in analyzing the data and summarizing the endpoint, but she takes it and then applies her voice to it, and she sees that as a value. Funny, on Facebook, somebody posted something about wanting a car with zero technology. Both my kids are like that. They're like, we don't want the car to tell us how to drive, and we don't want
Yeah.
maybe it's they don't want to answer my phone calls while they're driving, but they're like, they don't care about that, like they're like, we don't
Yeah.
need that. I think the thing that they love most is they can hook their phone up to play the music they want to play off their Spotify.
Right.
Anything else, they don't care about that stuff. and
Yeah.
and so you got to question, they grew up in an era where there was always technology.
Yeah.
So is it the group that grew up where we were on the cusp of it that we are so excited about all this new stuff, whereas they're like, it's just another piece of technology?
Yeah. It's like just, when I was a kid, I remember I was just talking to my mom about this. Like, I don't know anybody's phone number anymore. When I was a kid, I'd have to know everybody's phone number, pick up the phone if I wanted to hang out with them and dial it. I mean, I don't know anybody's phone number. And I mean, that's a good thing, I guess, until my phone dies and I'm stuck somewhere and I have nobody to call.
Right,
But
right.
it's my last question for this segment, and I think that this really ties into everything we're talking about. I'm sure your daughter looks up to you. You are a great role model for her, and you are a role model to many, me included. But who are your role models? Who do you look up to?
I thought about this question, and I think this is a difficult question because I don't know that there's one person. What I can say is, in my career journey, I have had a career coach, Kathy Coleman, who has definitely supported me in understanding more about who I am and what lights my fire and why it lights my fire, which
Hmm.
is extremely valuable to know. I
Yeah,
think from an industry perspective and, sort of looking at that, there's just so many and so many different little pieces.
yeah,
And I was trying to think, okay, what's the list? Well, the list is pretty long. And I even think about our experience of how we almost worked together. So we got introduced by a mutual friend, right? We
hmm,
almost worked together. And then you went off and you got a job at Rensby and I went somewhere else. And I've watched, like, you went to Renspree and you didn't just go to Renspree to be another industry relation person. You went to Renspree and you've created this entire network of Renew, which I look at and I think, wow, like, look what Lauren did. That's inspirational, right?
oh,
And I can name those things through the list of people. And everyone from somebody who's new in the industry that I see really hustling to create change and bring new ideas to the table, all the way to the veterans, some very close friends, others I watch from afar. So I don't know that I can narrow that sort of down. I think it's
yeah.
just there's so many.
Well, you know what? I think that is a champagne problem to have because we are so blessed in this industry to have so many powerful women to look up to and so many industry shakers and movers. And it is hard because everybody has found their own little niche in the industry and is making a difference. And I think that it's just an amazing thing to watch.
Absolutely. I agree.
So my last question for you until we move on to the next section is, what is one piece of advice that you would give another female headed into the real estate industry? If they are just heading in tomorrow, what would you tell them?
I think I'd tell them that they need to understand what lights their fire, and then seek the opportunities where someone stokes that fire, where whatever their environment is, it's helping them stoke that fire. And because I just feel like sometimes, because it's so relational, sometimes we're very relationally connected versus sort of looking at ourselves about, why do I love this? Yeah. And sometimes it might just be, I love the relationships, but I just think, what is it that lights your fire, and what do you need to have to continue stoking that fire is really important.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that there are so many people in this industry that will keep that fire going within you. You just have to search for them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Kerry. This concludes the first section of the Renew podcast. Everybody listening, thank you so much for taking the time. Kerry, thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. Everybody, please make sure to like and subscribe to the Renew podcast on whatever pod platform you listen to us on. And tune in to next week's session where we talk to Kerry about growth, work-life balance, and being the best advocate for yourself. Thank you, Kerry, so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.